So today we are celebrating the annual MFA Thesis exhibition.
A bit of background about myself. I grew up in northwest Montana. I went to undergrad in Seattle, got my BFA. Spent 5 years just kind of wandering around, and I ended up applying to this program, and I got in, and so happy that that happened. This body of work started about 2 years ago, where I decided to create a performance piece, and I was basing everything on self and self-portraiture and how I view myself in this space and how I deal with space and everybody around me. And so I created a 600-pound cement sphere where I encased a cube in it. And I spent 3 days, 2 hours each of those 3 days, in a public gallery chiseling away at this to find the sense of self. That was the finished fragment that I considered my self-portrait. As I was sweeping up all the fragments, I decided that these were still pieces of me, that these were still parts of me that needed to be seen or encased or contained. And so that led me to working and creating all the work that you see around you. Every piece of cement or concrete in all of these works are from that single self-portrait performance.
What you kind of see is kind of a translation of themes of the body as well. In my work, I kind of translate that into softer, more squishy forms. I like to try and experiment to see how can I make these really, really hard surfaces look kind of squishy and soft or playful. And it kind of just devolved into this madness of explosion of color and glitter, which I absolutely hate. But like it transformed everything with a little bit of light, and it just kind of expanded the work, and that's kind of the goal. It's just kind of abstracting the figure a little bit more, so it's not necessarily noticeable, but there are hints of that body in there.
This project started, the initial thought it started in 2016 during the Trump election, and this project is talking about the generational rift between first and second generation of Vietnamese Americans. It sort of signifies the way that prisoners of conscience in Vietnam are treated, and their identities are sort of redacted. And the text you see on the eyes is a Vietnamese word called Gong Sang, which means communist in Vietnamese. What I wanted to do with these photos is just to have it serve as a form of celebration and a moment of healing for the community. So these are all taken within the Seattle Chinatown area. This project has really taught me to appreciate this community and just to start listening to our elders more and just finding these stories that are there to be told. And all we have to do is just sit down and ask them.
You can question, like, what is art? You know, does art have to be certain materials for it to be considered art? Is something that comes off of a copy machine valid, something that you should spend time looking at? Well, that's something else you'll notice in the space, is that nothing is the same material. I like to really explore with different things. So I did this, and I was done with that, and I'm doing the yarn. So right now it's this unfinished thing that's just sort of open for display. That's another thing that's been really important to me, is this sort of expression of the unfinished. Maybe the connection to my life is that a lot of things are unfinished, and I feel sort of in limbo a lot. And I don't think that's just me. Like, you know, you feel, at least sometime in your life, that things are just sort of in flux, and so I'm showcasing that with this. It is an unfinished thing in a space that's maybe designed for things that are really highly finished and polished, but it's just a work in progress, like we all are, right?